Hello and welcome to my course on AI automation powered by N8N. In the last lesson of this section 3 of this course, we learned about how you can connect various different apps. We talked about Notion as well as Airtable, which were not introduced before in this course. In today's lesson, I am going to start to deep dive into some of the intermediate and advanced concepts of N8N. So today we are going to talk about conditional logic, execution order, as well as the branching that happens in N8N. By the end of this workflow, you will be able to build some intelligent workflows that can adapt and handle some unexpected scenarios like a pro. Before we start building workflows in this lesson, let's break down these key concepts that will make your workflow smarter and flexible. The most common form of conditional logic is if and else condition. It is like asking a question: if this condition is true, then do X, otherwise do Y. For example, if the ticket is marked as urgent, notify the manager, otherwise assign it normally. In the marketing domain, if the customer opens up an email, send a follow-up, otherwise add them to a different sequence. Similarly, if you are working in the sales side of things, if a new lead is from a high priority industry, you need to fast track them, otherwise assign them to a normal pipeline. This brings the concept of branching in N8N, which is more like splitting your workflow in different branches. Branching allows workflow to take different paths based on various conditions. It is very useful when incoming data needs to have some kind of different actions performed on them based on various different conditions. There are three types of branching that exist in N8N. First one is the conditional branching, which is more based upon if and else condition, and this splits our workflow in two different branches. Second one is multipath branching, where switch node is used in order to split multiple conditions based on whatever input is coming and matching to a particular condition, and I'm going to explain this with the help of an example very soon in this lesson. But in short, in this type of branching, you have multiple branches, more like n branches based on the conditions specified in the switch node. And third one is the parallel branching, where multiple actions are performed from the same node. By the way, you can perform conditional logic with the help of a filter node as well, which is filtering your data to be passed on to the rest of the workflow. It is more like conditional logic that is happening, but it is not outputting multiple branches. That is how the filter node differentiates from the if node. These kinds of conditional logic allows you to control what happens based on various conditions, making your automation smarter and smarter. Now that you have created multiple branches, you must be wondering which branch will execute first, which node will execute first. By default, the node execution order follow these rules. First one is branching execution happens in a sequence. One branch completes before the next one starts. Second one is top to bottom execution, where nodes higher on the canvas executes first. And the third one is if the nodes are at the same height, then left node most will execute first. And why this execution order matters to you? Well, consider an example. If the node in branch C, which is the third branch, depends on the data that will come from branch A's node, but the branch C execute first in your workflow, then the workflow is going to break and you are going to get some unexpected results. So understanding this execution order is very essential in making error-free automations. Finally, all these branches must merge together at some place in your workflow so that a single final action can be taken. I'm not saying that it is going to happen in each and every workflow that you will build, but still in most of the scenarios when the workflow is split into multiple branches, you might need to merge couple of branches or merge all of them together to take some kind of a final action on the process data coming out of all these branches. And that is where the merge node in N8N comes in handy and becomes your friend, because it waits for all the branches to execute first, then combines the data from all these branches and outputs a single combined data set for the rest of the processing in the workflow. With this kind of merging, you ensure that your workflows come back together in a structured way. I have covered many of these concepts, including a dedicated lesson on merge node in the section 2 of this course, but let me quickly refresh again in this section 3, because these are very important concepts and will make your life very easy if you understand them to the core. So now comes the fun part, where I'm going to share my screen and explain all these concepts with the help of workflows in N8N. I'm currently logged into the cloud instance of my N8N workspace, which you can see over here, GenAI Unplugged .app.na10.cloud, and I'm currently in my personal project Na10 course folder where I have opened the workflow 5 which we created in the last lesson of this course or first lesson of section 3. You can go and watch out that video if you have not watched it out yet. The first concept that we learned in this lesson was conditional logic, which can be implemented with the help of if and else node or filter node, and I'm going to explain it with the existing workflow that we had created last time. So you can see that in this workflow we had a webhook where the data is coming, then we have some Google Sheet, and then there is a if node over here, and if I open it up you would see that it has some kind of conditions over there. And so we are checking company name is not empty, email does not end with gmail.com, email does not end with hotmail.com, and all these are AND conditions. So if all of them are true, that means the condition is going to be true and the output will come in the true branch. And you can see that there are two branches over here. True branch is one item because the condition was true, and then there is a false branch. And if I go back to the canvas, you can see that it is outputting two different branches over here. First one is the true branch, and it is basically sending a Slack message, then creating a task in Notions, and then sending or creating an entry in our Airtable database. However, if I have to perform some kind of action or logic in terms of false branch when the lead is not qualified, that means these conditions are not true, that means the lead is not qualified, and maybe I need to update the entry in the Google Sheet to mark it as unqualified lead. So any kind of logic that I have to perform in the false part, I can do that with the help of second branch that would be there. But in this case you can see that in the false branch I don't need to do anything. That's where the second conditional logic node comes in handy, which is more like a filter node. Let me add the filter node to this workflow and see how it will change. So let's search for filter here. So this has opened the configuration screen of filter node, and you can see that it is much similar to our if else node. If I go back over here, right now it is not connected. So let me disconnect this and basically create the connection over here. Let me just put this one up a bit. Alright, so now the Google Sheet data is coming into the filter node, and let's add the condition that we had. So what we wanted was basically company name exists, right? Exists, right? So the company name exists, and the AND condition was email does not ends with gmail.com, and we had another condition which said email does not ends with. So now I have configured this filter node exactly in the same way as our if and else node was configured. But when I test it out, now you can see that there is a kept branch and then there is a discarded branch. But if I go back to my canvas, only one branch is coming out of it. So in this type of scenario where I'm not doing anything about my second branch, which is like the false branch over here, I should have probably used this filter node to make my workflow much more efficient. And if I show you the definition of the filter node and the difference between if and else, so you will see that in the filter node it says remove items matching a particular condition, whereas in if node it is saying as route items to different branches based on true or false. So that's the difference between if and else node and filter node, and you have a clear understanding of where to use which one of them. Now let's go to another workflow which we created earlier in section 2 and explain the concept of branching and all. Let me save this one and go back to my Na10 course folder, and I think how data works in Na10, that was the workflow that we created. We have already covered the first type of branching, which was conditional branching, and that was based on if and else node. Now in this example, I'm going to explain the multipath branching and parallel branching. Now in this particular example, you can see that multiple branches are coming out of switch node. If I zoom in a bit, let me open up the switch node configuration. Over here, we are matching the order status, which is equal to pending, then one branch is getting outputted. Then there is another condition which says that if the order status is equal to processing, then the branch name of processing orders will get created. If the order status is equals to cancelled, then cancelled order branch will created. If the order status is equal to refunded, then refunded orders branch will get created. So this switch node is going to output 4 multiple branches. So like I explained earlier, switch node helps you create n different branches. Here the n is equal to 4. 4 branches are being outputted out of this one. So this is more like an example of multipath branching. Then there is third type of branching, which is parallel branching, where multiple actions are performed from the same node on the data coming out of it. And if you look closely over here, let me put this node a bit over here and then this node a bit over here. You can see that from the cancelled branch that is coming, so from the pending branch only one action is going out, that sending an email. From the processing order branch, only one action is going, which is more like sending a Slack message. However, if you look closely on the cancelled orders branch, there's this one action that is going to send the email. However, the same action is being done for the refunded one, but there is another one in the cancelled branch. If I look at closely, so you can see another line is coming out of it, which is more like sending a Slack message. So what is happening over here is all the data or all the orders which are cancelled, we are sending an email as well as we are sending a Slack message. So two type of actions in parallel are being performed for the cancelled order as well as refunded order. So this is an example of parallel branching in n8n. The execution order depends from left to right. So over here the workflow is going to execute from here to here and top to bottom. So that means what is going to happen is first this branch is going to execute. So that is at the top and that is the leftmost one. Then this branch is going to get executed. Then cancelled order, which is more like SES node, is over here and this is going to get executed. And then for the refunded order, this is going to get executed. And then this Slack one node will get executed for the cancelled as well as refunded order branch. So if I test this workflow, you see that this is getting executed. Then this gets executed, then this is getting executed, then this gets executed. So you just saw that it executed from left to right, top to bottom. So it is very essential to understand. I have explained what can go wrong in the section 2 of this course. Go and watch those lessons of section 2 where I have explained how data flows in n8n, and you can clearly understand what can go wrong if you're not paying attention while configuring or putting these branches in right order as you want them to execute. Now we have talked about the conditional logic, we have talked about multiple types of branching that exist. We have also talked about the execution order. Now I am going to talk about the final key concept of this lesson, which is more like merging. I'll open up another workflow that we talked in detail in section 2 of this course. And you can see that this was much more detailed example of multipath branching as well as parallel branching. But now we are interested in the last concept, which was more like merge data. So if I zoom in a bit, so over here what we are doing is as soon as the workflow is triggered, we are fetching orders data from Google Sheet and then we are fetching the order details data from Google Sheet. And if I open this merge node up, what you are seeing is we are combining the matching fields and we are matching the order ID over here so that we can keep or merge the data from order header and order details and they combine together on the common order ID. So wherever the order ID matches for orders header and order detail rows, the data would get combined into a common data set. So if I execute this step, let's see what happens. So I would have like two input data. So you are seeing that I have get orders data and get order details data. That was input 1. This is input 2, right? So in the input 1, we had 104 rows and it has row number, order ID, first name, last name, customer email, order status, order date. However, it does not talk about what items are added in this particular order. So that data is coming in order details data. So if you look at row number is there, order ID is there, product ID, product name, category, quantity, unit price, total price. So this is basically the order details, and I can't do anything in rest of the workflow if I don't have both the data together. So that's where I need to merge the data from two different branches that are coming up. This is more like an example of parallel branching where as soon as the trigger is happening, first this node gets executed because it is at the top and then this node gets executed because it is at the bottom. But for rest of the workflow, I need to work on single common data set. So if I open this up, so this has merged my data from order details and order headers into a single common data sets, making it 291 items. So you can see now that I have this order ID, but the product data is also merged into it. It is basically having multiple rows of the same order if the number of products are multiple for that particular order. But that I am taking care in rest of the workflow where basically I'm using edit field set node, then switch node is there to identify what is like, pending orders, processing order, cancelled orders, refunded orders. It is outputting it into different branches. So this is removing the duplicate, then this is aggregating them and then sending a common one email to the customer service team. Similarly, one Slack message is being sent because we are removing the duplicate and aggregating the data. And finally, again, we are removing the duplicates from both these cancelled orders and refunded orders. You can see that we were performing the same action on cancelled and refunded orders. But over here, what we did is because same action needs to be performed, we have optimized the workflow, first merged both the data over here, then we have removed the duplicates, and then we aggregated them, and then we are having a parallel branch of sending an email and sending a Slack message. If I test this workflow out, you would see that first this node is getting executed, then this one, then this gets executed. Then you can see that at the top, first this branch gets executed, then this one, then this one, then this node, and then this node. And that's why it's important that you have an understanding of all these concepts, and hence this was a quick refresher lesson before we move to loops, error handling, and optimizing your workflow in the next lesson of this section 3. So I'll see you over there.